across the country, corporations, including some banks, are rolling back DEI initiative.
We formed our DEI council. We did it because we thought it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. You lost your dad at a young age.
You lose a parent like that, it's really tough. Nothing's going to make that easy.
All right. We're going to get to all of that in just a moment. But first, I want you to know how grateful I am for today's podcast sponsor, my friends at FitAF Nutrition. They are Eastern Pennsylvania's leading meal prep company. FitAF offers meals of multiple sizes for people with various health goals. And you know what I love about this company? They use high-quality ingredients like grass-fed meats, wild fish, and locally harvested produce. And all right, for you parents on the go, they even offer family meals. Go to fitafnutrition.com, place your order by Thursday at midnight, and get fresh, prepared meals delivered right to your door on Sunday.
Use code Leckey20 at checkout to get 20% off your first order of 7 meals or more.
Here we go, buddy.
It's the Ryan Leckey Show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ryan Leckey Show. You know, one of the great things I love about doing this podcast is telling people's stories, especially when they end up breaking barriers or doing things that are interesting, like, you know, getting themselves into leadership roles at a young age. And somebody who has a great story to tell. And also, we also have this interesting story because we ended up growing up in the same hometown and going to school together, but we lost touch, reconnected. It's kind of crazy. But Zack Khuri in the house, you are the market president for Orrstown Bank in Central PA. Do I have it all?
Market president for Orrstown Bank, yeah.
Got it. Even though you have a really long one, he's like, you can shorten it this way because, you know, the banks love their titles.
Like I said, we love fancy titles, but I am pumped to be here. So thank you, Ryan. I listen to the program. I love it and honored to be a guest on the show.
Yeah, and I'm super stoked because then later we're going to have some fun because my team found out that you and I went to elementary, middle school, high school together. And that's not really the main reason why this came about. Like, right, we lost touch, we reconnected, but they're like, we have to just ask him rapid fire questions about Ryan as a kid. And I haven't even seen the questions, so we'll be digging into those later. But
I got all the tea. I won't let you guys down.
All the tea. And by the way, I feel like I should be in a tuxedo. You're all dressed up, and I'm in like a V-neck.
Banker, I got to look the part. I'm coming on the Ryan Leckey Show. I got to look good.
Let's do it. But, you know, I am really impressed. I mean, breaking barriers, leadership at a young age. But first, why the world of banking? How did you get into this?
Well, that's an easy one. My dad was a banker, right? So I started out, I'm a one-trick pony. I was a teller in high school and intern during college, and that's been my career path since then.
And I think what's amazing, though, I mean, your dad kind of had a legacy in the banking world in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. You fell in love with it because of him, but you lost your dad at a young age.
Yeah, and yeah, that was a really tough thing. First, I'm grateful that he got me into banking. I actually got to work with him for a couple years, and that was awesome before I moved out to central Pennsylvania. But yeah, he was a great example and a great dad, and that was a really difficult thing. But truth be told, I feel lucky that I had him and my mom, who you know, and you lose a parent like that, it's really tough. Nothing's going to make that easy, but if you have a mom like I was fortunate to have, Lisa, it's a little easier because she's so strong and so steady. Yeah. And my sister, my brothers, just very fortunate to have a strong family. And I think that was a lot of what I have now I owe to that.
And I think about your dad in the banking world, right? Like such a workhorse, also known as a fitness fanatic, and I know that's where you get it from. But what are the lessons in the work ethic, I think, of before you ended up rising in leadership roles in the world of banking that you really took away from him that he instilled?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question. I think the big thing is the balance. And what I mean by that is he took his career really seriously. He was a good banker. But that wasn't how he defined himself. I don't think that's how he defined himself, and he found his value and his happiness through his family. And that's nothing he ever told me. That's just, looking back, what I saw. And, that was apparent that, he's never missing sporting events or vacations. Those are sacred. And that's not an easy thing to do, in any field. But if you're to dedicate yourself to your career and to strike that balance with your family, and that is something that's important to me. I love what I do. I love banking. It's a great profession, but I never want that to be the source of my happiness. I don't want that to be my value because, that's fleeting. My happiness is my family. I'm working for my family, and again, I'm grateful that I have a career that lets me do that and provide for them.
Yeah, we're going to talk about work-life balance because I always love to know people who are in leadership roles, how they juggle it, right? Because like me, you're so passionate about what you do, right?
Yeah.
So like, where do you kind of draw the line between work and now I got to unplug and I'm with family? You have 3 kids.
3 kids.
A beautiful wife. I've seen her on Instagram, and like, we're going to dive into that. But I think first, when we think about banking, I think what's cool about you, right, in that world, you kind of started learning from the ground up, boots on the ground, right? As a bank teller before you went into some leadership role, kind of to know how this house is built. What does the foundation look like, right? The people who are on the front lines, essentially. But I think banking right now, it's seen as so traditional and such a conservative industry. And you stepped into a leadership role at a young age. So how did you end up earning the trust of people, and what did that journey look like as you climbed, for your first bank gig?
Yeah, I think banking, any profession, whatever job you have at the time, you need to do that really, really well. And if you do that, you do the right things, opportunities will present themselves. And then, you step into leadership roles. And because I started in high school, I think I probably was in a position to step into leadership roles at a younger age than I might have otherwise been. And that presents challenges coming in as a young leader. Maybe you're managing people that are older and have been doing it longer. That's not easy. You have to be very intentional about that and learn and focus on your craft.
Did you ever feel, though, a job that Zach did had to be 100 times better than somebody who's been there a while because you were the young buck?
I think that's absolutely the case. I mean, I think more specifically, what I felt is I had to work harder. And I think that's a good trait of any leader, is that lead by example. Right? If you're going to ask people to do something, you need to be there doing it with them and working as hard as them. And especially coming in as a young leader, I'm coming in to manage a lending team, say back in 2010, and there's very good bankers that have been doing it a long time. They don't necessarily need a rah-rah leader or someone that's going to give them pearls of wisdom. They need someone that's going to advocate for them, deliver. So I think you focus on that. How can I add value? That rather than, people think of leaders and you think of the Winston Churchill up there making a speech, and that is important, right? That dynamic leadership, but you need to have the bedrock first where you're delivering results. And that's what I've always focused on. How can I perform and help the team?
But I remember you, I think in high school, that's where your first bank teller job, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I think when you had that gig, right, there's a lot of turnover in that position at banks everywhere, right?
It's the toughest job in the bank. Teller is the toughest job in the bank. You're the front line. Anything goes wrong at the bank, you're going to hear about it. Tremendous amount of transactions. It's difficult. We have great tellers. We're grateful for them.
Yeah. So did you feel, I guess, that obviously started laying more of the groundwork to help you get to where you wanted to go?
100%. And not just a teller, but J.P. Morgan, right? The famous banker. He prided himself that he could do every job in the bank. And that's important. You know the business inside and out, but you also know what you can and can't ask of people. What's a reasonable job to tell or job to ask someone to do.
And how do you juggle this? I mean, community banks, right, they're facing a lot of changes with digital banking on the rise, right? Telling people to go away from your traditional banks. I've seen a lot of marketing around that. Leave your traditional brick and mortar, right? And everything's on the app. I mean, where do you see the future of banking heading, and how do banks kind of combat that?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I mean, first of all, the banking landscape in this country has changed dramatically since I even started in 2005. And one of the big factors is consolidation. You have increased regulation. It's harder and harder for small community banks to stay independent, so they get swallowed up by bigger banks. When I started out of college, graduated 2005, there were 8,500 banks in the United States. Today there's 4,500. I mean, it's almost cut in half.
Wow.
And that's really important when you consider that community banks, those are the ones going away. They're getting gobbled up by the big banks. Community banks, although a small percentage of the deposit share, do over 50% of the small business lending in the United States. So you have a smaller and smaller group doing that. The result is that the remaining banks have to be efficient. We have to embrace technology and deliver great service. If you're going to compete with a Bank of America, with a Chase, you're going to have to offer something they don't. And that really is service and getting to know your customers and understand them and help them reach their goals. Some banks have been able to adapt and others have. So perfect story. I used to work for a bank called Commerce Bank. I don't even remember them, New Jersey. It was a pretty big bank. And the model there, why they were so successful at Commerce, was the best service bank out there. And what that meant was 7 days a week open. Most banks, not open on Sundays or if Saturdays, limited hours, but we're open 7 days a week. We were open from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. And we had beautiful branches on every corner. It was like the Starbucks model. Everywhere you would see a branch. And that model in the 90s in particular was fantastic. I mean, people wanted to bank on their way home or from work or to work, and they couldn't do that. Commerce offered a solution there and delivered that service. Very successful, but right when I got there in 2005, the definition of the best service started to change. And we as an organization did not keep up with that. We were still building the best horse and buggy, and the competitors were out there building Porsches. So that bank failed to keep up. And as a result, that was merged into 108. But you can learn from that. You can say we want to deliver great service, and that's our mission. But you have to be able to adjust what that means. So that will continue to change, I think.
Do you think we're going to see brick and mortar banks 10 years from now?
It's a great question, and yes is the answer. And I'll tell you why. We do a lot of market data, all banks do. And if you poll millennials and Gen Z, especially ones coming out of college, like great target for banks, and you say, you're going to open a bank account, what do you want? Or do you value a physical branch, rather? The vast majority want a physical branch, which is surprising to me.
Because so many of them, right, are the generation of text me, don't call me. Let me do everything on an app, right?
You would think they all want to go with a fintech online. They want a physical branch. But here's where the challenge comes. The next question in the survey is, how often are you going to use that branch? And it's never. The only reason they're going to use it is if there's a problem. I mean, I don't want to go into you're busy. Do you want to go into a bank? I
have to say, I mean, I love my bank where I go.
Well,
I mean,
I
don't bank where you work.
Is it a community bank?
Yes, Fidelity Bank and NEPA is a community bank.
That is excellent.
And I think for me, even though I can deposit checks on mobile, to see the people who know me and have that relationship and putting customers first and who are like, these people have my back and I can text them if I have questions, that means a lot to me. So I'm like one of the rare people I love
that.
To my bank.
I think people want that. I think that's exactly what it is, and what the value proposition is, that relationship, that they know you. And if you have an issue, you can pick up the phone and call someone that you know. You're not calling a call center, and you can go in. But the challenge is the actual bank traffic continues to go down. So banks have to adjust. You're going to have fewer banks. I said that that Commerce Bank was a Starbucks. The model now is like Verizon service centers. You don't need them on every corner. You need to have them well located, so when people need a loan or have a problem, they can get in there. But yes, I think there absolutely will be brick and mortar branches
in the future, 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk about the actual leadership roles you've held, because I want to know about the climb. And I think people, even if you don't work in banking, right, maybe you could take a page out of your book on maybe ways to navigate that. I think sometimes people are scared to shoot their shot to go into a leadership role. I think sometimes also people get frustrated when they should be in a leadership role and they're passed over, right? So 2005, you graduate college. Walk me through some of the steps, because you were a bank teller in high school.
Right. Well, I started working with Somerset Trust Company in Johnstown, where my dad worked.
Yeah.
And that's a great bank and still is. Very good people there. But I did want to try to make it on my own for a little. I think that was a good idea, So I came out to Central Pennsylvania with the intent being to Harrisburg, stay there for a few years and probably go back. I love Johnstown. I still do. I think it's a great place to live. So I sent resumes to numerous banks and ended up with an institution out there in the management trainee program, and kind of the standard banking progression is you start as an analyst, and it's soul-sucking work that you're there till all hours of the night, but you have an opportunity to differentiate yourself and turn out a good product.
And this is what town again?
This is in Harrisburg,
okay, got
Pennsylvania.
And then what?
Worked through there you become an account manager and then a commercial lender, and then I was promoted to run my first lending team in 2010, I believe. Same year I met my wife. Also, I met her at the bank. But so yeah, stepped into that role then, and worked for before Orrstown. I was at a larger bank where I ran a commercial lending team, and in 2019 I had an opportunity to join the executive team at Orrstown Bank.
But I think that's where things got kind of cooler for you, because there weren't really a lot of young people on a bank executive team.
Absolutely.
And a lot of diversity, which we're going to come to diversity and the whole
Yes,
DEI
we can talk about
talk
what we're
happening
doing.
around the country now, but because you were instrumental in really kind of moving that conversation forward.
I love to talk about
at
that.
Orrstown Bank. But
That's
go ahead. So
important to
you
our
get
culture.
on, what's the leadership role that all of a sudden they're like, here comes this young buck, Zack Khuri.
That's exactly right. And Orrstown Bank it's a 100-year-old bank. I mean, just to give you a little of the history there, it's in Orrstown, Pennsylvania, which is near Shippensburg, where I went to college. 1919 it's formed. In the first 90 years, it's like a 2-branch, very small bank. In the 2000s, it started expanding. New markets, doing a lot of loans, and then 2008, Great Recession. Orrstown took significant losses in its loan portfolio, had major regulatory challenges. I was a competitor at the time. You know, I'm leading a team at a rival bank, and I distinctly remember presenting to my team at the time and had a slide up with Orrstown and said, this bank's dead. They don't even know it yet. They're going to sell, because that's what happens if you start suffering financially and the regulators come in, they make you sell. But what I did not know was the culture of Orrstown, and it starts with our board of directors and our chairman, and they are deeply dedicated to the bank, to the clients, to the shareholders, and to remaining independent. And they said at that point in time, the regulators wanted to close them, but they weren't going to do that. They're going to do whatever it took, and they rebuilt from there. And all of a sudden, as a competitor, I'm seeing this small bank in the market now taking business from me and growing and adding lenders. So they're always on my radar. And in 2019, I was offered an executive position there. So that was a step up, but it was a little bit of a leap of faith. I was coming from a much larger bank, going to a small one. But what got me there was the culture and the people. It was a culture that I wanted to be a part of. It was people, that I wanted to work with. I believed in the leadership there, and
I'm always fascinated, though, by people's mindset, like when they're in an institution, whatever, or an organization, right, for a certain amount of years, things get comfortable, and the longer you stay, the tougher it is to leave.
100%.
Right? Like for me,
100%.
I did television for 22 years, and it was the scariest thing just to take a leap of faith and be like, okay, I'm going to quit a great paying job. I had healthcare. My mom thought I was initially nuts at first, and I was like, I'm going to go shoot my shot and launch my own company, right? Where was your headspace, or what was sort of the whispers you needed, or the match to like really light that fire that said, okay, it's time to jump into this?
More it was I wanted to be at a community bank where I could affect change and be a part of the strategy and really help the clients. If you're at a big bank and the decisions are being made out of another city, you have limited control over that, where you could have a local business that you believe in and you want to do this loan for. I want to be at a place where I can get that done. And that's what, probably was the big incentive to move. I also knew, just like you, I mean, I was in a good spot there. I was running a good team. I was playing a lot of golf. I wasn't working particularly hard, but I wanted a challenge. I wanted to try something different.
But we should say you're inking deals on the golf course, right?
If my CEO is watching.
Right.
But
so you said, okay, I'm going to change it up. And then what was the first big, that was the big leadership role for you?
Well, I was already a team leader, but moving, it's executive level.
Yeah.
So that was a big step up. And like you said, I was coming into an organization that was already performing very well and had a culture. And I'm the young guy from Harrisburg, coming in. And I think that's where my approach was, I'm not going to try to be a know-it-all. I'm going to try to listen more than I talk, and I'm going to try to add value where I can.
And how much younger would you say you were compared to other people on an executive team at a bank?
I was definitely the youngest. I was 36 at the time, 37. So I was definitely the youngest on the executive team. I mean, banking's an older demographic. We'd like to have more young people in it, and I think it's a sturdy and honorable profession. But
I think too, when we think of banks, right, especially executive leadership, and it's not, I just don't want to pigeonhole banks and say it's just them. There is the stereotype, because I've talked to people who work at banks locally, right, where they think, the bank board is just a bunch of rich old white guys, right? And you said, we need to do something about this as a whole, I should say, with the bank to support diversity, equity, inclusion. So talk about the DEI initiatives that you said, you know what? I want to try to lead this, because people might look at you and be like, you're that demographic, right? You're white guy, successful. And then you said, we need to make change.
That's why I did it. And to give you the context, we formed our DEI council, myself and our head of HR, we co-chaired it in 2020, right? George Floyd. And I know that seems reactionary, but it made people start to think, what are we doing? How can we be a part of this? But the more I looked into it, well, let me back up. I don't think it needs to be controversial, DEI. I don't understand why that is, because from my view, if you do it right, it's not just the right thing to do, but it's good business. I mean, that's what we believe. And you said, like, I fit. I'm a white guy, middle class. I was born to two good parents. My dad was a banker. If I put my pants on the right way, I'm going to go to college and can get an opportunity in a bank. But how many people are there that don't fit that bill, that have the exact same ability as Zack Khuri, but might not have that path, right? I think a lot. And so if you can find a way to maybe pave that road and bring them into your organization and give them the opportunity, that's a win. Now, with that, I'll say a core concept of our DEI council and our bank is we will hire and we will promote the best person, period, full stop, right, every time.
I think that's the misconception.
That is the misconception.
I think a lot of people think that, because I've also seen people get promoted because they're relatives with so-and-so, right? And I think that is the misconception when you implement DEI initiatives, right? That you're not, a lot of organizations have the right mindset to say, regardless of how this person identifies, speaks, looks, right? We want to promote the best person, right? But we also want to make sure we're inclusive and we're trying to make sure everyone has a shot.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's that hard to walk and chew gum there. Like, I don't understand. I think, look, it can go either way. I think the extreme is not good. I would disagree with promoting someone based on anything other than merit or hiring someone. I mean, as an officer of the bank, I owe it to the clients, to the shareholders, and frankly to the rest of the team to put the best people possible in those spots. But, if we're fishing for talent, which we always are, why would we not make an effort to fish in a larger pond? And, that's the one aspect of what our DEI council does. We focus on recruitment and identifying talent. And I'll tell you, that's harder than you think. Like, in this job market, it's not like we have 10 candidates for every job, especially in Harrisburg, where you have the state government to very, very low unemployment. It's hard to find people, period. But we do make that effort. We reach out to colleges and talk to minority organizations, women organizations. At Orrstown Bank, we are over 50% of our employees are women. I think we have a great team.
And what was the response, though, when you brought the whole DEI initiative?
I was wondering how it would be, because you said, like, we're based in Shippensburg. Our board of directors is in Shippensburg, Central PA, a lot of rural markets, Lancaster, a lot of conservative Christian values. Orrstown is a best idea wins culture, and we want what's best for the bank. And when we explained it, the full support of the board of directors, the full support of the executive team, because really, how can you argue with it? Like I said, part of it is a recruiting, part of it is making employees there feel welcome, feel heard. So we form ERG groups. We have our
employee resource groups, in case you're like, what is that acronym?
Resource groups. I think it's just common sense. If you're happy at work and you have a friend at work, that's one of the number one factors in workplace happiness is, do you have a good friend at work? Something that simple.
But at the time of shooting this with you, it's 2025, and across the country, corporations, including some banks, are rolling back DEI initiatives. And here's somebody who you went full bore at your bank to say, we need to have these in place. Like, what's the reaction there? Is there thoughts of rolling things back? I mean, where does your head stand, your headspace regarding other companies saying it's time to pull back?
That's not why we did it to begin with, though. We did it because we thought it was the right thing to do, and it would add value to our shareholders, to our clients, to our employees, and that hasn't changed. We're not going to change what we're doing there because we think it makes the company stronger. I think it's common sense, frankly.
All right. and I know it's a tough subject. A lot of people are divided on it.
Yeah, but does it need to be?
But I think you're right.
I mean, really,
think it's
does it
about
need to be tough?
doing the right thing.
I think the key is that you promote and hire based on merit.
Yeah.
But can you supplement that? And can you, like I said, fish in a bigger pond?
Like I tell people, look, we hire people, and if you have to go out and hug a tree every day at noon, but you kill it as editing, you're hired, right? I want to dive into like sort of the world of finances and what maybe people might be missing. The advice everyone needs, right? There's so many people, I think, it's March 2025. We're talking the world of banking, but specifically a lot of people right now are struggling to just buy groceries, right? So many people say, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They can barely pay their bills, right? So what's your advice to people as sort of a finance guru, to people in that position? Like, what's the mistake people are making with their finances?
What I do primarily is commercial lending, right? But the concepts are the same, and it starts with having a budget, which is easier said than done. We're all so busy running around having a budget and sticking to it, but it has to start there. And the advice I always give people when making a budget is you kind of back into what you can. They say, can I go buy this car? I want to go buy a sports car. Can I buy it? Well, the first question is you start with how much you need to save. You kind of got to back into it. All right, when I retire, how much do I need? Am I saving for that? Am I saving for the kids' college? So you start with that savings piece, and once you have that locked in, then the rest you can spend on what you need. But I think that often is missed. People don't save enough. They don't stick to a budget, and living above your means. Credit cards are the other really big problem. You don't want to have credit card debt. It is really difficult to get out of.
And what are you seeing from a commercial lending side, right, with businesses maybe making bad decisions?
Not planning. I think you have to. It's really the same concept. It's having an intentional plan and executing on it. Not over leveraging, meaning borrowing too much money. I mean, there's a right balance that you can have there. But the businesses that we see that are successful are extremely intentional about planning, both strategic and down to the details. That's the common thread I've seen.
I think we need a budget for Ryan Leckey Media because the kids call it Leckey bucks and they don't think it's real money. They're like, let's go on Amazon and order this, I don't know, $7,000 camera. It's fine, it's Leckey bucks.
It's a lot of fancy cameras here.
They better have the budget together.
If you need a loan for it, you know who to call.
I want to go into, just for people, professionals, right, who are trying to like cut their teeth and grow into leadership roles, what are the biggest lessons you learned through your own journey, right? Even if I'm not looking to work in banking, that you found really worked for you to get to a level where people are like, not old enough, sorry, son, you need more experience. And you're like, no, I can do this.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from my wife. She's the chief operating officer of a real estate company in Harrisburg, and at a young age too. So we kind of go through that together. And some things we talk about is the importance of being genuine, of being authentic. And I kind of had to, I think, figure that out along the way. Like I said, I think everyone has this idea of what it means to be a leader, but what people want is authenticity. You have to be yourself. I think that's the starting point. And beyond there, it's how are you adding value for who you're trying to lead. It's servant leadership. That can be giving them, constructive feedback, which I think a lot of managers are reluctant to do because you don't want to have that uncomfortable conversation. But the good people crave that. They want to hear that. And again, you have to be intentional about that. And I always think you have to be very quick to do it. You don't want to give someone advice for something they did a month ago, providing that. And like I said earlier, everyone likes a hard worker. If you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do what you're asking your team to do, getting the buy-in is a lot easier.
Before we flip the script and start diving into sort of our background, growing up in the same hometown and high school together, is there any challenge that sticks out in your head that you're like, this is the biggest thing I faced in my career? And what is it and how'd you get through it?
The PPP loan program. Do you remember that?
During
Paycheck
COVID,
protection
right?
loans. So yeah, COVID happens. We shut down. I had a 3-year-old at home, and the government's plan to keep businesses open were these paycheck protection loans. and they rolled out through the SBA was the vehicle for this program. Now, SBA loans, essentially the government guarantees a portion of the loan. The bank does it. If the loan goes bad, the government might help the bank recoup some of the losses, but you have to do it very by the book. You got to, meaning if we make an SBA loan and we don't document it properly and it goes bad, we're not getting paid back. All banks are aware of that. So when they said we're going to do this vehicle, we're going to do it through the SBA, the banks were like, great, but we got to understand it fully or else we could get left holding the bag on these loans. That was, so all of a sudden you have to build that out overnight, right? And we're not in office. We're all working remote. It was one of those rare times when it was an advantage to be a community bank because smaller organizations were more nimble. We put together a team. I was heavily involved in that. And we crafted a process in 2 days where we could start doing them, as many community banks did, well before the larger banks. And if you remember at that time, no one knew it was going to happen. Businesses were panicked. They needed to get these loans, and we were able to provide them not just to our clients, but to anyone that needed one. And it was a tremendous lift. It was all hands on deck in the bank. We were working around the clock, but it was also fun because you felt like you were solving a project. And it was also culturally, we had people stepping up. The executive team's on a call every 3 hours. We were on a call and going into the night. And every now and then, someone within the organization would have an idea for how to do something better as we're building this process to do. We did 13,000 PPP loans. Wow. I mean, it's a tremendous.
You were building the plane as you were flying it.
We were building the plane as we were flying it. But we would have people at every level of the organization that would have an idea for how to build the plane or duct tape this wing on. Yeah. And the next thing you know, they're in that executive meeting. And that's the kind of culture I want to be a part of, where it is best idea wins. It's a meritocracy. And that was the hardest thing I've ever done in banking. It's also the most fun I've ever had because you actually felt like you were doing something good and making a difference.
And before we look at the end goal for your career, right, what does a market president do for Orrstown Bank in Central PA?
I oversee the entire market. So we have commercial lending, we have our branch network, we have mortgage, we have OFA. I'm responsible for that. That's kind of my business, and we have the market president model where each of our 4 regions has a market president. That's our balance sheet. We're given a lot of autonomy, but we're also held accountable for that. So you kind of run that as you see fit, and branch strategy, hiring.
How many branches overall?
We just went through a merger. That's why we just merged with Cadorus Valley, which doubled our size. We're now a $5 billion bank. I want to say 40 branches overall, 12 in my region.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your end goal?
I should know that. I don't think the goal is specific branch size because, like I said, I don't know what that's going to look like. We want to have an efficient branch network, which we do. Mm-hmm. The goal is to remain independent. And to do that, we're going to need to continue to grow. We were $2 billion when I got there. We're $5 billion now, and I think we'll be $10 billion within a couple years. And that's not growth for growth's sake. That's to get scale, to stay independent. I mean, we think it's very important to have a local bank based in Harrisburg. And every decision we make is within the context of, will that achieve our goal of staying independent? And sometimes that's a tough decision. That's closing branches. Incredibly painful. A few years ago, we closed our Orrstown branch, our namesake branch. And that was incredibly painful decision. But it was the right decision. It was losing money, and the amount of money it was losing could be 2 people's salaries. So was it worth keeping something open for a namesake if that impedes your goal? And
as you climb in the banking world and leadership, where do you want to land? What does that final stop look like?
This is you're gonna think I'm blowing smoke here. I want to do a good job at whatever I'm doing. That's truly my answer. I like what I'm doing now. I'm happy to take on new opportunities. I want to be on a winning team, and I want to be good at what I do. So whatever comes, next, I'm happy about that.
And for people in different careers, what would you say to people who want to work their way into leadership? Tips to get there?
Yeah, or like a new person starting out in the workforce, or just in general.
In general, I don't know. Maybe it's somebody who's been working at a place for a couple of years and are like, "Is this my end game?"
Well,
what have you found as sort of climbing the ranks? Granted, you work in banking, but for other fields, I mean,
I think, for any field, Ryan, and you know that I can see this in the culture here. Hard work's the biggest differentiator. That's what I've found. I mean, everyone's smart. There's plenty of smart people. The people that I've seen be successful are the ones that are willing to work the hardest. Candidly, that's probably just table stakes. My advice to anyone starting out or joining an organization is find a problem and solve it for your boss. That's the people that are valuable, even without your boss identifying a problem. Anything within the organization.
I mean, it could be my team does that. Yeah.
And I don't care if it's the paper copier is jammed and you got to fix it.
Yeah.
But find a problem and solve it. And then go to your boss and ask for another problem to solve. That differentiates you.
Good tip. All right, before we wrap, you had questions. You wanted to turn the tables on me because you're like, wait.
Well, it's the best part about my job is finding out about businesses. And I've watched you build this, and it's so interesting to me. I mean, I've always worked for a corporation. I have so much respect for business owners because it is such a leap of faith.
All right. Wait, we're turning the tables. Okay, I'm ready.
Turning the tables.
All right.
If you could do it all over, I guess, what would you do different, if anything? Or would you not do anything different? As you started this in your kitchen table, Look where we are now.
Right. No, I left a great paying job in television, a job I loved, people I worked with. I worked for 2 different television stations, built a brand in this market, northeastern and central Pennsylvania. And it wasn't easy leaving, but I don't know. For me, if you ask what would I have done differently, I look back and as cliche and cheesy as that sounds, because other people have asked me, I'm like, I don't think I would have changed anything because I learned so much along the way, right? For me, I always find success and the sort of that dopamine hit for me. It's always along the journey. It's not the end result, right? It's digging in and doing the work to get there. Mm-hmm. So I remember the days on my dining room table where I hired one person and, somebody I worked with in television. And then all of a sudden we're working on my dining room table. And I remember after a few months, my partner looks at me and he's like, you're not gonna be able to work on our dining room table forever. And I don't want to come home and have your whole team here. So he's like, I think it's time for you to find an office, right? So then I got a small office, and then one thing leads to the next. But what I always say, I tell this to my team, the only time I'll ever be really mad at you is if you have a great idea and you don't share it. So everything we're doing today is because the rock stars on my team have pitched something, and I'm like, let's do it. And I think when people work for corporations, right, that have a lot of guide rails around things, and you got to stay in this lane and you can't do stuff. For me, after working for, essentially I worked for 2 stations, but I was owned by 5 different media companies, I was finally able to, if I want to throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, I can do it because now it's my company. And I think that's why I wouldn't change anything, because looking back, the stuff we're even producing today for our clients, the projects we're doing, building out a new office, I would have never imagined where we are today if you asked me a year ago. Hey, do you think you're going to be doing this at this time? I'd probably be like, no, I don't think.
I bet you had that vision.
No,
You didn't imagine that a little?
I imagined big things, but I couldn't see it as good as it is.
Yeah.
Right? And I think the craziest thing and the advice I give people, because folks still reach out to me and say, hey, I was like you. I did the same thing for 22 years. I'm thinking of, changing things up. What should I do? And I always tell people you have to play the tape forward, right? So if you're going to be happy in your job, doing what you're doing now a year or 2 from now, then maybe you should stay there. But if you're playing the tape forward and you're like, I don't want to be doing this in 2 years, then you have to take action. I always feel like, especially if you have anxiety around a decision, action will always trump the anxiety when you're taking an initiative and moving the needle forward. Mm-hmm. That's what I found to work. And I think for me, I had not only a supportive family, but the people I hired, the thing I learned too was hire faster, fire faster, right?
Fail quickly.
Yeah, know who's a good fit. And I remember I hired young people when I started, out of college who, a great woman, Jill, who's on my team here, right? And she didn't have a ton of editing experience. I'm like, but I feel like she's going to really dig in and get this. Super hard worker. And it's like she's been editing for 20 years. She's incredible, right? And I think it's taking a chance on people because in your gut, are they authentic, like you mentioned earlier? Are they real? And are they going to dig in and work and solve problems?
Yeah.
And that's what my whole team does.
What was the hardest part about that? Building the process, building this.
The building part, I think it's the funnest part. It does have its own stress and anxiety because, of course, there's money involved. And what does this cost? What does that look like? But I think it's just fun because when you're not answering to a corporation, or I don't have a board to answer to, I'm like, let's do it. And I think the thing I noticed is and I always said this in television when people are always so nervous to go on live TV. And I'm like, this isn't heart surgery. We're not saving lives. You're not going to die, right? Like, you're going to make your way through this. And that's what I found just doing my own business, right? Like, there's stuff, we might spend a lot of money in equipment. I'm like, oh my God, hope the gigs keep coming. And they keep coming, right? Because if you built a team, I feel like we have a really great foundation in place. And when you build a team that really wants to deliver, and they know what your expectations are, they know what's expected, but they want to exceed that with their crazy ideas, then I'm like, let's do it. Like, the second company I'm rolling out in the summertime was from one of my teammates who's like, hey, what do you think about launching X? If we should do it. And I'm like, that's a genius idea. Let's go.
If you can hire the right people, everything becomes a lot easier.
A lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about the right people. And like you said, failing quick and hiring for ability and attitude.
Yeah.
Rather than
And I hire people,
experience.
I think when you hit the
can't
nail on
teach
the
that.
head, I hire people and promote people based on merit, right? And based on like their work ethic. I don't care how you identify, what you look like, any of that. As long as you can come in and kill it, right? And you're innovative and you jive with the team, works for me.
If you generate the results.
Yeah.
Here's one I ask all my clients. 'Cause
Okay,
it's
I'm ready.
important. As a business owner, what keeps you up at night? What stresses you out the most?
You know what's crazy? This doesn't have as much to do with business. Sometimes I can't fall asleep because I'm so excited to wake up. Isn't that crazy? I can't fall asleep some nights because I'm so excited, I hope I fall asleep early so I can wake up at 3 or 4 a.m. and like dig into the next
That's
day.
incredible. That's
And
it. You're never lying there stressed.
I have stress and I have anxiety, and a lot of it sometimes. But working out helps, like not missing my
Yes.
morning workouts to set my day up for success. But I think I'm so excited for what the next day is going to bring. And people think I'm crazy because, when I worked in television for 22 years, I went to bed at 6, I got up at 2 a.m., 22 years, right? A lot of times you're sleep deprived. I'm still a big person who's so focused on that, like 8 to 9 hours, right? But I think for me, what keeps me up at night sometimes is just thinking like, oh my God, what can I get up at the next day and just start chipping away at? And I love to be somebody who everybody, not only my team, but my competitors are always playing catch up to.
Leading from the front.
That's how I roll.
I could see that. He's got to be hard to keep up with, too.
Because they'll wake up. A lot of my team members will wake up, right? And they'll have emails or messages from me, not blowing up their personal phones, but emails that I'm sending out at 5 if things have to get done. But they execute at a high level. And I think it's sort of like Jeff Bezos, right? Like, I think he has his certain window of the day. Like, he's a morning person, right? But I think his window is like 10 to 1. He wants to have his meetings or whatever and then be done for the day. Like, for me, it's not like I'm leaving and, okay, I'm going to go for like a hike, right? But I think I want to give people my best brain power. And a lot of my clients, I think, who have been so successful in their businesses, a lot of those people I talk to usually before sunrise. Sometimes it's like 6:30 in the morning, If I have to have meetings, it's usually like after the workout, after I'm in and checked in with my team. That 10 to 1 window is like magical for me, but I don't mind having calls with people at 7 a.m. or Zooms because my brain power is just like ready to rock.
You got the energy.
Yeah.
I've known you 30 years, and you're one of the most positive people I know. I mean, so I don't think that's
Was
intent.
I like
feel
this in
you're-
like middle school and high school?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I look
Do you
back
not
and
think
I'm
you
like,
were?
I don't know. I thought I think it's so long ago, and isn't it crazy? Like, I'm sitting here with you, and I'm like, this is a guy I ate like lunch with in elementary school.
Couple
right?
of Johnstown boys.
Couple of
Look at us
Johnstown
now. Who
boys.
would have thought?
That's right. And wait, my team sent me questions because I wanted to have fun with this. So this is the first time on a podcast that I have somebody who I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school with.
And many aerobics classes.
Yes, because my mother led a 6 a.m. aerobics class in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And I say it was like functional fitness. It was like CrossFit before CrossFit
It really was
cool.
CrossFit before.
Yeah, and your dad and your mom went to that. And then obviously not only did we see each other at school, but then we would end up at the Grove, this workout facility, this recreation center of sorts, at 6 a.m. with our parents. And I was always in the back row, like rebelling against working out because my mom told me to do it,
Yep.
But I think that's what's crazy now when I play the tape forward and look where my life is. I was like, oh my gosh, I am my mother. And what I mean by that, I'm up by like no later than 5 a.m. most days, right? I'm working out early. I'm really dialed in with my nutrition, right? I'm the person now when I'm out to eat that I'm like, okay, just put this on the side. Okay, I'll have my life on the side, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm my mom.
You are. Oh, it's a good thing because your mom doesn't age, apparently.
Neither do you. Okay, so questions that my team, and I didn't read these, so I'm just going to read these like cold, right? These are questions that my team just sent to me on my iPad that I have to ask you. This is about me, I guess,
here
when
we
I was
go.
growing up. Questions for Zach. Did you know Ryan during his Frosted Tips era?
Unfortunately, yes.
Remember that? I had
tried-
many transitions. I had the blonde tips.
We wanted to have an intervention, but I don't think we were getting you off the frosted
No,
tips.
wasn't
It
going to happen. Did he always have this much energy?
Yes, 100%. You look like you don't think you did.
I think
You
I was always
always-
high energy, but
always,
I always wonder,
always.
like now, I don't know. I look back, I'm like, was I like the same?
100%. I mean, you were always the social, center of any social event. I mean, wait, were you homecoming king?
No, I was not.
I thought
Thanks
you were.
for rubbing
or
it in,
prom-
Zach.
Okay,
It was
I
not
thought
homecoming
you
king.
were on the court at least.
No, I think I
What?
was like on student counts. I was not on the court, but it's fine. It's fine.
I'm not sure about that. I think he's playing up.
I won most
the-
talkative. Go figure, right? That was like my claim to fame in high school. Here's a good question though. The team asked, "Did you know that Ryan was gay?"
I didn't. And we were just talking about this. The funny thing is, I was always friends with Ryan, but I would get irritated because he was like the ladies' man. Like all the girls loved Ryan, so much so that it was, might have been a little resentful of that.
Which I,
I
think
didn't-
is
I'm sure-
hilarious.
I
and
guess
guess what?
it's-
The ladies still love Leckey.
I'm guessing at some point I realized that, but I'm trying to remember when I would have figured that out. But no, I didn't know that. Maybe in high school, I don't know.
I think
when
like
did
a
you
lot
come
of
out,
people,
if
right?
that-
I didn't come out to like my mid-20s, right?
Okay, then
Because
maybe
I was already
that's-
working a public job. I'm like, do I come out? And I was like questioning a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of people go through that. And I remember like even being in high school, right? I think people sometimes will assume things, and then that's where bullying and name calling came into place. But I remember going to like high school, middle school. That you were always so chill, and like there was never. You were always like so real and authentic, and I think that's why leadership has always worked for you, like in your career, right? There was never
Thank you
like a
for
bad
saying
word that came out of your mouth, and like I'm saying like. From a standpoint where
Yeah.
I ever felt like, oh my God, I don't think I could ever tell Zach who I am or what I do, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when we reconnected, I think, gosh, on social media and other stuff, you were like, hey, how's it going? And we talked business, and we picked up like nothing happened.
Yeah. But no, I didn't know that. I couldn't even pinpoint when I figured that out. I don't.
All right. Last question from my team that they want to know. Was Ryan always into fitness?
So my first response was yes, and then they show me a picture of you back in the day. I was like at karate. Does karate count as fitness?
Yeah, I think
Then
it does.
then yes, because
But I don't
you
think
were
I
big
was-
into karate at the Y.
Yeah,
right? I
was
remember
like
being
at the-
down there.
I was at the YMCA for judo. I did, tongue sudo, like karate. I had a second degree black belt in that. Just want to tell the team
I don't think
that.
you're into fitness like you are now. but
No.
your family always was. Your sister Bridget taught
My
me how to lift at the YMCA.
Yeah, my family was always in it.
So you
And
might have
that-
been forced to be in.
But now, like, I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I am at 42 the fittest I've ever been. And when I looked at you when you walked in, and I ran into you like a couple months ago, but I remember like, we went to high school together and stuff. It's so weird when you see people from high school because a lot of them still look the same.
I know, right?
And I still feel like I'm not that young, but I still feel like I'm that age where like I don't feel 42. And then you walk in and I'm like, oh my God, he seems like I could totally bust his chops like I did like senior year of high school.
Same Zach.
Yeah.
Little more sore. I did just I try to work out every day. Not every day. My wife and I have to alternate.
Right.
3 kids. We
Right.
take turns. But I blew out my knee this summer. Had to get ACL surgery. So I was on the couch for months, and it is awful. I mean, it makes a difference at work, at everything. Like you
Yeah.
said, you get up in the morning and start your day with a workout. You have more energy all day. It just.
I think
sets
you're
the
better
tone.
for yourself and better for the people around
100%.
you. Yeah.
But clearly, you have that
I
figured
appreciate
out.
it. Checks in the mail. Got myself a fresh spray tan too. He's like, oh my God, really? Here we go again. Any other questions or any other thoughts? I mean, it was so good to reconnect, and I was grateful that you came here to our studios to talk about it, because I think people who break barriers, right? And I think I look at where we talked in the beginning of this podcast. You saw your dad in a banking leadership role, and you worked your way up from the ground up in the banking business. But to lose your dad at a young age, and I remember your dad's work ethic, and it's like, I'm sure people tell you this. It's like they see him in you.
Well, when people do tell me that really makes me feel good. So thank you for saying that. And honestly, thanks for having me on the show. I'm just honored that you think I'm interesting enough to be on the
like,
Ryan
let's
Leckey
chat.
show. So that is awesome. really enjoyed it.
No. Any final thoughts? Any other questions?
No,
I mean,
thank
we
you for
already
having
pulled
me.
back the curtain on my frosted tips. I don't think anything's off.
Were you guys
limits, so.
unaware of the frosted tips prior to this? Oh, we were aware. And
The
you
team, they're
you
like-
still took the job? You still?
There's plenty over the years. It's like, okay.
Yeah. I almost had like eventually at one point, and I'll never forget when I left television, because when you're under a contract, you can't like change your look, your appearance too much. I remember when I left my job, and the team will tell you, I bleached my hair blonde.
If it makes you feel any better, I went through a phase where I was wearing Hawaiian shirts and a hookah necklace. My wife saw a picture of that, and we wouldn't have.
Where did
been
this come
together.
from?
I don't know. I thought it was cool. I don't know.
Interesting.
It was a rough phase.
All right. So Zack Khuri, the market president for Orrstown Bank in Central PA. It was
Pleasure
good to
be
hang
here,
with you, by
Ryan.
the way.
Good to see you, man. Thank
All
you.
right. And he's dressed like a banker. And I feel like I'm
Gotta dress
dressed
the part,
like,
man.
and I'm dressed like Shrek. All right. Now, thanks so much for being a part of this episode of the Ryan Leckey Show. I will catch you next time. Take care.
Here we go, buddy.